Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is a very special one, especially if you are a purple lover, I would say. I got a palette from Drizzle and this is their matte press pigment palette. This is a total purple palette. It comes with like a huge mirror and this is the palette. If you love purples, you are in absolute business. I absolutely loved swatching each and every shade in this. Talking about that, let's dive right into the swatches because I really wanted to see like how different it is to each other, because when I saw this palette I really thought there are redundant shades, but when I swatched it I could definitely see like the different undertones and the depth that was created in this palette. So I thought, what better thing to do, like 5 looks for you guys using this palette. So that's exactly what I did. I mainly did use this palette in conjunction with the Drizzle MILF palette, and this is like my all shimmer palette from them, and this is like a match made in heaven. Like these two palettes together, I mean, just tell me if it is not magical, then I don't know what it is. Like I really love it. Now let's talk about the details of the palette. This palette is an all matte palette and it comes with 20 shades. This palette is going to launch on September 17th, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is going to launch at the retail price of $41.95. And I do have a code with Drizzle. It is Smithy Sony for 10% off, and it is an affiliate code, and if you do use this code, I thank you very much. And if you did end up picking this up, I really wanted to give you like different looks that you can create with this palette, and you can do so much more rather than the 5 looks that I did. I really wanted to use as many shades as I can, and there are still shades that I didn't use. So without further ado, let's dive right into the 5 looks that I created using this all matte palette. I'm so excited for the look. By the way, I'm wearing lenses, so if you feel like I look a little different, that's because I am. I'm wearing gray lenses. I have like brown eyes, but let's go with the flow. I'm just getting used to this. Let's see how it goes. So this just landed in my collection and I'm so excited. You guys know how much I love my purples, and this is a purple palette, all matte purple palette by Drizzle. Look how beautiful this is. Like, look how beautiful this is. So let's begin. I am basically gonna pair this up with the Drizzle MILF palette. If you guys have not seen this before, this is a magical all shimmer palette from them, full of duochromes, multichromes. I feel like these two palettes together are like match made in heaven. So let's begin. Okay, I'm gonna start with this shade, which is Hyacinth, this one. And then I'm gonna concentrate that on the inner third of my crease. It's very easy to get like overwhelmed by this palette, and I know that because it looks like there are so many of the same purples in this palette, but when I swatched it, these are so different tones, and you might think like, oh my god, Smithy, and you're saying that only because you are a purple lover. No, it's not. Like I really loved the tones that were selected in it. I really wish that there were like a little more like maroon shades, like burgundy maroon shades also included in this, rather than having like this and this. Like I feel like if I blend this I can get to that, but still it's a lot different. When I swatched it, I felt like there is definite difference between the shades. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I am missing like a little more like deepened like, you know, like plummy browns or like eggplant browns or like maroon shades. I think that would like round up this palette really well. And if there were a little bit of shimmers inside it, that would have like sealed the deal. Although these mattes swatched beautifully, like absolutely beautifully. Okay, now let's move on. Let's move on to another shade. Let's dip into this one, which is Raisin Hell, this one, and let's see how deep it gets. It appears to be pretty deep in the palette, which it is, and I'm building it little by little just because I can definitely build, and these were buildable mattes. Like when I was swatching it, it was so smooth and was building up pretty well, I would say. So look at that. I'm gonna just wing it out a little bit and then do a V and then melt it out with that purple shade. I mean, yeah, these are all purples. So it'll be difficult to tell you which purple. Like that. Love that. I feel like I definitely need a loose setting powder underneath my eyes so that I can avoid fallout. And if there is anything that is falling on it, I can just brush it through. So I'm gonna look a little weird. Who cares? And just to blend the edges, I'm gonna dip into this shade, which is Icing. I'm just gonna go over the edges. But for purples, I mean, it's super gutsy of Sugar Drizzle to like get a all matte palette out, and that to start with purples, because purples are the most difficult to blend and like most difficult to formulate, and they are performing like a dream, I would say. Like, look at that. I'm loving the blend, just like that. And I'm then gonna dip into what? Let's just dip into Icing. Go in inner corners and mix it with that hyacinth shade, the hyacinth shade, just like that. Now for the lower lash line, let's dip into, I need a brush, yeah. Let's dip into the shade, the Raisin Hell shade, and I'm gonna mix a little bit of Wisty too, and then I'm gonna just smoke out my lower lash line. You can definitely keep it all matte, and I feel like this would be lovely as an all matte look. Like, look at that. And I'm gonna take that Icing shade and just blend out the lower lash line too, just to connect everything together, because why not? I'm loving that. For the inner corners, let's do Lavender Ice, just there. It's light enough to be like an inner corner shade. Can you see that? At least on my skin tone, I would say. And you can put that Lavender Eyes all across the eyelid and call that a day, I would say. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a little bit of hyacinth again, just a little bit, and just deepen up the crease. This is so buildable, man. This is so buildable. Before I apply the lid shade, I'm going to take a little bit of my NYX Glitter Glow, which I always take with all my shimmers, so there's nothing like new in it. I'm going to take a flat definer brush and then just messily just place it on the eyelid, just to give it like more of a tacky base. Just like that. And I'm going to take that Ribbit shade that I was talking about, this one, and then just apply that right on the center of my eyelid. Like, look at that, look at that. Oh my God. And just apply that all across my eyelid, wherever we left that blank. I'm going to switch to my brush just to get a little more precision. I'm going to take the same shade Ribbit and then apply that as like more of like a cut crease, I would say. Look how pretty that is. More of in like a diagonal form, and then just spread it out with that purple shade. And then for my matte shade, I'm just going to dip back into the shade Raisin Hell, just a tiny little bit, and I'm just going to blend out the edges, just so that there's no harsh lines. Look at that. Oh my God, I'm loving that, loving that. Just to mend the Raisin Hell shade with that Ribbit shade, I am going to take the shade Croaky, just a tiny little bit, because why not? having too much fun. And taking that also in a diagonal way and melting it with that Raisin Hell shade. Gorgeous it is. Come on, come on. Oh, I'm loving that. I'm going to finish off this eye with some liner and mascara and I'll get right back. Now for the inner corners, I'm going to take this camouflage shade, just a little bit. I'm just going to plop that right there in the inner corners. Just like that. And that is my first eye look. Really loving the way it came out. Now let's move on to the second eye look. Let's start off with the shade Icing. I feel like this is going to be the transitioning shade. And I'm going to try to be a little smoky this time on this eye. So this is going to be my transitioning shade. At least for my skin tone, I would say this is like the perfect transitioning shade. Just like that. And now I'm going to look for a dense brush. I'm going to dip into the shade called Jaded. Tap off the excess. I'm going to take that and pack it right in the center of my eyelid. Look how beautiful that is. I actually should have applied like a primer just for it to like stick on my eyelid. But yeah, let's do it without the primer and see. Like how blendable, how buildable it is. So no windshield wiper motion. Right now, just packing up the shade. Just like that. And now I'm slightly, with like a very light motion, I'm just gonna start blending the edges. Like very lightly, I would say. And now once we have that a little bit blended, I'm going to dip into a purple shade. And for that, I'm going to take the shade called Amethyst Rain. And I'm going to start blending the edges of that blue with Amethyst Rain. Can you see the difference of the tones? Of that blue to a purple, and then I'm gonna go back into that pink, the icing shade, just to blend out that purple again. But look how beautifully it's blending it. Like beautiful it is. Like I'm very impressed. Look at that. Superb. Okay, I'm gonna dip into this shade, which is Icing. And then just blend out the edges of that purple. What's that called? Amethyst Rain. I'm going to take this Amethyst Rain shade again. And then just blow out my lower lash line with this shade. Ah, come on, that's so pretty. Look how beautiful that is. Okay, again I'm going to take that icing shade. Why do I call it iconic all the time? And just blend lower than that. And then take my tight defining brush, go into Jaded, and then put it right next to the lash line. Like very close to the lash line, I would say. Almost like I was like lining my waterline. Now I'm going to dust off the powder that we applied. Now what I'm going to do for the inner corners, let's take some shade. I'm going to take this shade which is Pond. Might be a little deep, I don't know. Will it be a little deep? Might be a little deep actually. It's okay, let's just do it. I'm gonna take that Pond shade right in the inner corners. because it does have like that blue and purple all together. It's a very pretty shade. Just like that. And now I'm going to finish off this eyes with some liner and mascara, and I'll get back to show off the second look. And this is my second eye look. I love the way both of them look. Like, I really love it. Like, oh, it's so beautiful. I cannot wait to create more looks. So let's move on to the third look. I'm going to first start off with the shade We Got the Beats, this one. And I'm going to dust that all across my crease. So let's do that. And it's pretty cool toned, I would say. And this is definitely going to be my transitioning shade, or like my crease shade, I would say. And these are like buildable mattes. I'm super impressed by that. I'm using my BK Beauty A503 brush. And I'm also going to dust this same shade, We Got the Beats, on my lower lash line. Now just to blend the edges, I'm going to take Lavender Eyes, just a tiny little bit, and just blend the edges. Back and forth, just not to lose that cool toned You Got the Beat shade. We Got the Beat shade. And then for the outer corner, I'm going to take this shade, which is Grungy Lilac. All this is like purple, but such different tones. I couldn't even like in a million years imagine that I can have like so many different tones of purple. But me being a purple lover, I am in little heaven. And this is Sigma brush, the small blend brush by Practicaline. I'm gonna put that on the outer corners, and also let's put that on the inner corners too. And let's go for like a halo eye. Oh, loving the tone. I'm back to my brown eyes if you didn't see that. I'm gonna also put that on my lower lash line. And then just to deepen it a tiny little bit, I'm going to dip into this Plum Pose shade. Let's take like a small blending brush. This is from BK Beauty A504. I'm going to dip into that. And then just dip into the extreme corner. And I'm also going to take it slightly as a blending shade because it does have like a different tone to it. I don't know if you can see it or not. Definitely a different tone to it. But still staying in that cool tone family. Oh, loving it. Also going to take that same shade, dust majority of it, I would say, and then just blending it across the crease. Just to close everything off. I'm also going to take the same shade on my lower lash line. I'm just going to take the big fluffy brush that we used initially and just blend out everything like from the edges. So pretty. Don't worry about the center because we're going to apply a shimmer there. And for that, I'm first going to take some NYX glitter glue. I also did post the swatches of this palette on my Instagram too, so if you've not checked that already, it's already there, so do check that out. Now for the center of my eyelid, okay, what are we gonna do? I'm gonna dip into Frog Life and Leap. I'm gonna take Frog Life on my fingers and mainly concentrate. I'm gonna concentrate that all across my eyelid and then top it with Leap right in the center. You can definitely keep it like a smoky eye too. Like that would be an amazing purple smoky eye. I'm also going to take whatever is like left over on my fingers and apply that on the center of my lower lash line. Yeah, just like that. I'm gonna take Leap. It's a pretty flaky shade here in this palette, but so impactful. So I'm gonna take that, smear it in the pan so that there's not much of fallout. I'm gonna spray my brush a tiny little bit. And then just place this right in the center. Can you see that? A flake of an eyeshadow there. And I'm just gonna give that like a pop in the center, that's it. Just for like an added brightness. Let's take the same shade Leap for our inner corners too. Can be super bright. I'm just gonna tap off whatever is excess on my hand and then apply that as my inner corner shade. Such a pretty shade, just like that. Now let me finish off this eye with some liner and mascara and I'll get right back. So this is my third eye look. Now let's move on to the fourth look. Again, we're gonna dip into this jaded shade and then we actually are gonna blend in turquoise sea and seagrass together. Let's see how it goes. I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm gonna first stamp that in the outer corners and also dust a little bit of loose setting powder because we don't need fallout too. Okay, I'm gonna again take that jaded shade and I'm gonna take that shape. I'm basically building that shape like a wing shape and then taking it down in the crease too, like that. This is going to be a dramatic look. I can feel it. Just like that. I know it looks a little weird, but yeah, it'll all come together, no worries. I'm also going to take the same shade on my lower lash line, like that. Now, I want to tight define a brush and I'm going to dip into that jaded shade and I'm just going to smudge my lash line. And then take it to the inner corners. I'm gonna do that. Pull that tiny little inner wing and then join it to my lower lash line. Just like that. I know it's dramatic. Hang on tight. Okay, now I'm gonna go into turquoise sea. Let's see how that rolls. And then just start blending the edges. I'm going to take a clean buffing brush and just blend out the edges. I think I lost that crisp line. I'm going to go back into that jaded shade and just crisp out this crease. I need that crisp line for sure, at least for this look. I'm looking forward for that. And then just blending the edges very, very lightly. Something like that. It's definitely new to me, so bear with me. Now let's move on to the shimmers. I'm gonna take this shade. Although this shade on this would be stunning, I'm gonna take this shade and Lily Pad together. I'm gonna start with Fly Swatter. And I'm just going to carve out the edge wherever we left that blank. Just like that. I definitely like that. Like it gives a lot more punch on like with the fingers for sure. So I'm gonna take that, since I do have that line defined at least. Look how pretty that is. Okay, now I'm gonna dip into Lily Pad shade, or should I go with Feeling Froggy? I think I should go with Lily Pad shade. Yeah, let's go with Lily Pad shade. And I'm gonna start doing my inner corners. Yeah, look at that. Ah, come on, that's stunning. Isn't that stunning? Now I'm just gonna dust off this mess underneath my eyes, and I'm just gonna finish off this eye with some liner and mascara, and I'll get right back. Okay, now let's finish off our inner corners. I'm gonna take the Camouflage shade from this palette, and I'm just gonna put that on my inner corners. Just like that. And that is my fourth look. Super unlike me, but I love it. I love the combination of shades, but I also feel like if you do not want to go with this shade on the eyelid, this multi-chrome all over the eyelid, like with those blues, would be so pretty, like so pretty. I'm just not using the shade just because I recently used this palette and I used that shade, and yeah, I didn't want to like give you repetitive eye looks. That's all. Okay, now let's move on to the fifth and the final look. For that, I'm first going to take this shade, which is Periwinkly, and I'm going to take that towards my, I would say, inner third of my crease. I'm going to take that like on my inner third of my crease, just like that, and do circular motion so that everything is blended. Now, once I have that on the inner part of the crease, I'm gonna now dip into this shade, which is Orchid Crazy, on the same brush, and I'm gonna put that on the center of my crease. Again, circular motion just to blend it, and I'm gonna take it to my entire crease, I would say, but I'm gonna deepen it out on the outer corners with some other shade. Now, once we have that all blended across the crease, now let's take a deepening shade, and for that I'm going to dip into Wisty. Where is it? Wisty, this one. And let's put that towards the outer corners, I would say. More like here. And I'm going to blend it all across my lower lash line too. Just so that everything like meshes up well. Beautiful tone of purple. This palette does have like fallout with some of the shades, I would say, and Wisty is one of that. And the other shade was that blue shade, the jaded shade. Because it's like a pressed pigment, you definitely can like see the pigment coming throughout in the palette, but I would say that doesn't bother me at all till the time it's like blending it right on the eyes. I'm perfectly fine with that. Now, just to deepen it out a tiny little bit more, I'm going to take this shade, which is called Plum Pose, and I'm going to mix it with Purple Dragons because I don't think we've used that shade. So let's do that. I'm going to take that right in the outer corners, and that would give enough depth for us. Can you see that? Okay, now for the inner corners, I want to take this shade, which is Sea Glass. It's a beautiful minty green blue shade. I feel like that would be a great pop-up shade. Just like that. Especially to blend it with that periwinkle shade. I think it's a really, really beautiful shade. Now for the lid shade, I want to dip into Bronze to Perfection by Sydney Grace. So I'm going to take that right in the center, just because I feel like it's going to complement the purple as well as that mint shade. And it'll be some kind of a pop. Look how beautiful that shade is. Now I'm just going to re-intensify the blending by taking that same blue shade, the mint shade, sea glass, and then just melting it with that gold shade. Just like that. And similarly, I'm going to take that Wispy shade, the purple one, and I'm just going to blend that edge of that purple with that gold. I'm also going to take that Wispy shade with Razzmatazz, and I'm going to put that on my lower lash line. Now I'm going to finish off this eye with some liner and mascara, and I'll get right back. I'm finishing off this eye by Camouflage shade right in the inner third of the eye, wherever we had that mint shade, just for a little subtle sparkle and shine. And this is the Camouflage shade that I use. And that is it, guys. And this is my fifth and final look. I really hope that you guys enjoyed all the 5 looks that I created for you guys. I really love this palette. If you are a purple lover, I think you're going to absolutely enjoy it. All these shades are super blendable, super buildable, and the tones that you can get for like purples is amazing. Like when I opened this palette, I won't lie, I thought that there'll be a lot of redundant shades. When I swatched it, I was surprised. Like I was so surprised that there were so many different tones of purple, and I couldn't find like redundant shades. Like there are close shades, but still like supremely different, I would say, because once you see the swatches that I did on my arm, you'll exactly know what I mean by that. But saying that, you need to be a purple lover to love this palette for sure, just because it's going to end up for being like a purple look or like a green blue look. Okay, now let's dive into the comparison. When I think of this palette, like all purple palette, there's only one more palette that comes into my mind, and that is ABH Norvina 5 palette. But when I did like side-by-side comparisons, I would tell you like this only has like 4 shades that are similar to this. Like it's super difficult to even like think about it being like all purple palette. But these are the swatches that I did with the comparison, I would say. There's a pinky shade, there's a lavender shade, there's a mid-tone purple, cool tone shade, there's a warm tone shade. These don't even like swatch similar to each other, but those were like most similar ones, I would say. So I would say you will get only like 4 shades similar if you do have that Norvina 5 palette. And let's talk about the quality of this palette. Like the mattes are buttery smooth. Like I'll just live swatch like a few shades, just pick any, I would say, and you'll see like how beautifully it just blends through. So let's see. Look at that. One swipe situation, like pigmented and beautiful. And you can see it when I'm like doing the 5 looks using this palette, how blendable and how buildable these shades are. I cannot recommend this enough. If you are a purple lover, you'll absolutely go nuts over this. Like this is some beautiful tones. I really want Sugar Drizzle to continue this trend, but I would also ask you to put some shimmers in it. I think people would really like it. We have a lot of mid-tone purples, a lot of them, but with like a different undertone. I do understand that, but I really would have loved if there were like a little bit shimmers included in it, like even if it is in like a purple family, but if this is used with her multichrome eyeshadow palette, like it would just take it to another places. Like, I really love this. Yeah, there's nothing bad to say about this palette. It really is beautiful. So that's all for today, guys. I really hope that you guys enjoyed all the 5 looks. Do let me know in the comment section below, out of the 5 looks, which one was your favorite. But otherwise, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.